folks, and I didn't have to do an update, and today I did. So weird. Huh. Must not be my day, huh? May 10th, 2023, Transportation Commission meeting to order. And Kimberly, I'll ask you to please read the instructions.
Absolutely. Welcome to our virtual meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members, if you are able, please activate your video for purposes of quorum and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. All panelists, that is alders, commission members, and staff, have the ability to mute and unmute themselves. Also, please continue to use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You'll remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the council, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Thank you. And Chad, floor is yours.
Thank you, Kimberly. If you could please, Denise Jess, who's a commission member, is in the attendees, and Steve Brist, who's a staff member, is in the attendees. Could you please move them both into panelists?
Absolutely. They should have prompts now. There you go.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll just double check and make sure we have everybody. Aiden, if you want to go ahead and call the roll, and we can maybe keep our eye on the attendees to make sure there isn't somebody else sitting out there that needs to get moved over. Aiden, if you'd like to go ahead, please.
Sure thing. Chris McCahill.
Here.
Ann Kovich.
Here.
Denise Jess. Who I see.
There she is.
Robbie Weber.
Here.
Trisha Bennett.
Here.
Bridget Brown.
Here.
Bill Bremer.
Here.
Harold Cleans.
Here.
And Darren Wozniewski.
Present.
Okay, so we have, since we don't have any alder members in this transitional period, both Harold and Darren are able to vote this evening. Okay, everybody have an opportunity to take a look at the minutes from the last meeting. Chris.
Move approval.
There's a motion. Darren, is that a second?
It is.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Chris, your hand is up. Is that still up from the motion? Okay. Seeing no hands, we'll assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing no hands, the motion is carried. Do we have any public comment under item 1 this evening, Aiden?
We do not know.
Okay, we did have an email that Aiden sent out to everybody with regard to the Metro network redesign and signage, which I know Aiden also passed along to the folks at Metro. So hopefully everybody had a chance to take a look at that. Are there any disclosures or recusals this evening? Okay, seeing no hand. We do have one item proposed for the consent agenda this evening. That's item number 2, Legistar 77393. And do we have anybody registered to speak on that item this evening?
No, we do not.
Okay. Does anybody wish for that item to be separated from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing no hands. Again, it's Legistar 77393, partially discontinuing and vacating public street right-of-way located at the southwesterly corner, the intersection of McKee Road with Maple Grove Drive. Is there a motion to approve? Robbie?
Move approval.
Is there a second? Okay, Bill, is that a second?
That is a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any objection to recording a unanimous consent vote on this consent agenda? Okay, seeing none. Motion is carried. Okay, so we move on to item number 3, which is accepting the report titled Comprehensive Plan 2023 Progress Update. This item was originally not referred to the Transportation Commission, and then at the May 2nd Common Council meeting, the Transportation Commission was added as an additional referral, and the Plan Commission review date was moved back to allow TC to have an opportunity to look at it, and the council meeting date was moved back as well. And it's certainly reasonable because a lot of the 2022 accomplishments that are referenced in the update were related to transportation. The city adopted the Imagine Madison Comprehensive Plan back in August of 2018 and do these regular updates. I think the TC areas of interest are land use and transportation, which was pages 4 through 7. And there was an additional section on health and safety added, I believe in 2022. And there's a big section in there that relates to street design and improvements in traditional transportation systems. So again, of great interest as relates to Safe Streets Madison, Vision Zero, et cetera. So anybody from staff like to make some brief comments on this item? Do we have anybody here? Yang, did you want to make any comments?
Yeah, I thought we'll have some colleagues from planning division who worked on the update would be here to give us a quick overview. Yeah, but I don't see anyone here. I don't know. Tom is out of town today.
Yeah, I thought there was somebody from planning, but maybe he bounced off. I thought there was somebody from planning on earlier, Yang, and now I'm not seeing him. So I wonder if maybe he got bounced out of Zoom or something.
Yeah. I think it's okay, but I think this body has been heavily involved with everything going on in transportation. And is absolutely right. 2022 has been a very good year for transportation in Madison, and especially in the updates. There are two strategies that I should say two components. One is transportation and land use. Another one is safety and public health, safety and health. So yeah, these two areas definitely has a lot to do, with what we do here in transportation. Not just traffic engineering, but my colleagues in metro transit and parking has done an amazing job. 2022 has been very fruitful year. We the city did the transit network redesign. That's definitely a big undertaking, and the BRT project is going. We adopted our Vision Zero action plan in 2023, which definitely significant achievement. And we also adopted the Complete Green Streets Guide, even though officially that's kind of into this year, but we've done a lot of work on that in 2022. Many other things like Stephanie can talk about the the State Street garage, and some of transportation demand management initiative, that's a new program. Also, we work with planning on transit oriented development, things like that. Really, there is a long list of things we achieved by working together. And we're definitely making progress on all the city priorities that's identified in the comprehensive plan. So here I want to thank the commission as well, for playing a critical role in working with staff and other stakeholders in making all this happen. I guess that's what I will offer in a couple of minutes. Since Tom is not here.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much, Yang. Does anybody else on staff have any other comments? And Aiden, do we have anybody registered to speak on this item?
Nope, we do not have anyone.
Okay. All right. Comments or questions? Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Yang. As you said, there's a lot of great achievements in there. And it's good to recap what we have already done over the past couple of years, or what you have done and what others in the city have done. One thing I noticed there in the transportation and land use section, there's only 3 items that have not been started yet. And 2 of those are in strategy 8, one of them being updating the subdivision ordinance to ensure that new developments incorporate the city's planned shared use path network. And then the other item in there is develop and adopt a citywide pedestrian and bicycle plan. So I'm wondering, and I guess the first one is in the lead agency's planning, the other one is DOT and planning. So I'm wondering, is that something that's on the horizon, given that we're already a couple of years into all of this and everything else is in progress or ongoing?
Thank you, Harold. Great questions. I could definitely answer in confidence on the second item, since we're heavily involved in that. Yes. So we'll get it going pretty soon on the pedestrian plan update. We actually got a federal grant to help support that work. So really, really happy for that. So that's definitely on our mind, and we'll try to get it going. We're working with the federal, with the agencies involved right now. We're eager to start. So on that, so just trying to get a funding in place. For the subdivision ordinance update, we start doing a few updates in that chapter regarding, especially for those regarding the complete streets components. So that's definitely has been worked on, and we're making progress. I'm not sure about the the other components of that ordinance. Yeah, but I'm wondering if any of my colleagues here has information on that.
Anybody else have any additional? I had heard that updates to section 16, I think it is, Yang, are supposed to be introduced soon at the council meeting. And I don't know that that addresses everything that's in this section. So Steve, I don't know if you have any, I know you weren't personally working on that, Steve, but I don't know if you have any other updates on that.
No, I do not.
Okay. But I do know, Harold, that at least part of that is in the works.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Maybe this is just something to remind, since I guess planning is the lead agency, that, I mean, I know that I was aware that the complete green streets portion of it is in the works, but yeah, making sure, I mean, it seems like a good opportunity to cover this as well. Thanks. That's all I had.
Great questions. Darren, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a recent conversation with a new alder, and we got on the topic of this, and she was asking me some of the things from the update. And there are some projects that I knew what they were, but admittedly, it's kind of confusing if you don't know what these, because it's just listed as in progress or working on it or whatnot. But I wasn't able to find anything on the website. And Yang, I don't know that you'll be able to answer this, but just a general comment for staff. Is there some place that lists what projects are making these in progress or working on, so that there's something to put their head around of what they actually mean? I wasn't able to find it.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. So you mean the details on those projects? That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to find because what this document does is really looking at a citywide perspective. Looking at the all the major components of comp plan. In which area that we're actually making progress on every year. So from that regard, it's really all projects all over the different agencies in a city. So I'm not aware a centralized location. People will find information, but I know that some of the projects we do have a kind of website on. As part of the major initiatives, like Vision Zero, like Complete Green Streets, like Safe Streets Madison, we have a website over there. People can find information quite easily. But I think it's true. Some of the projects that there haven't been a lot of information being posted on the website. So it might be a little bit hard to find. And also, again, because it's scattered around the city, so I think it's making it even harder for for people to gather all the information. I know planning staff has spent all the time gathering information from all different agencies as well. So what I can do is that I can bring the feedback to our colleagues in planning division, and also I need the transportation department. And we can look into how to make the information more available to the public.
Yeah, or even this was a particular brand new alder, so as they're voting on it, they had no concept of what any of this stuff was. So I think it'd be helpful for them to be able to wrap their head around it, or what these projects actually are.
Yeah,
that is an excellent point.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a general website for Imagine Madison, and the updates are posted there. I'll have to go back and look and see if there's a contact in the planning department, because that might be another way to find your way to some more specific updates if it's not evident from that particular website. So we can maybe follow up on that for you, Darren. Denise, is that all you had, Darren?
It is, thank you.
Denise,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Thanks, Anne. Harold's question spurred a question for me that might be outside the scope of this discussion. So if it is, just tell me and I can follow up offline. So I was curious kind of what the intersection is between the state bike ped plan and the city doing one. Both Bridget and I serve on the state active transportation steering committee, which is the bike ped plan. So just curious about that from a connecting the dots point of view.
Yeah, maybe I'll try to answer that. Yeah, so you know, as far as I know that we you know, haven't had a lot of kind of interactions or intersections with the state on the statewide plan update. You know, I also suspect the probably, you know, folks at the state level, some of the you know, maybe like, you know, look at the major roadways in the city. But that's something definitely we're interested in. You know, our plan will be probably very much more refined, you know, covering all city streets. But I think that's a great point. That's something that you know, we would be interested in, and we'll reach out to the state to see how can we help and how can we contribute. Yeah, on you know, on the other hand, you know, we do meet with our state colleagues on some of the kind of major planning and studies for major projects right now. You know, like Stoughton Road, for example, the two Stoughton Road projects, like, you know, some interchange discussions, and the interchange could be hard, but for Stoughton Road, you know, we're really actively, you know, working with the state and its consultants, you know, really trying to provide a lot of better accommodations for pedestrians and bicyclists along those facilities.
Thanks, Yang. That was super helpful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Denise.
Thanks. Bridget, go ahead.
Yeah, just really something to consider. You know, I think one of the things that the state is looking for is, you know, how they could do a better job of supporting local communities. And so, you know, thoughts that you might have on that, I think would definitely be welcomed, particularly in updating the somewhat outdated bicycle facility design guide for Wisconsin, and making that, frankly, bringing that into kind of the current day. You know, so for example, one that I know I've identified is bicycle and pedestrian accommodations and roundabouts. I think that's something that needs to be tackled on a statewide basis to provide to local units of government such as the city. But any other ideas, I think, would definitely be very much welcomed. And yeah, if there's any need to, well, and in fact, we will be reaching out to the city and others as we work through that plan over the summer and into the fall. So yeah, your thoughts will definitely be welcomed and appreciated.
Great, thanks. Anybody else have any other comments or questions? Okay, we would need a motion on this item. Robbie?
Are we looking for approval? Is that if I move?
A recommendation to the Common Council.
Well, it's a report on progress. So
I imagine it would be a recommendation to accept the report.
move to accept the report.
Right. Okay, so there's a motion to accept the report. And Darren, is that a second?
Yes, second.
Okay. Further discussion, unless Robbie, did you wish to speak to your motion?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I understand that this report is brief on details, but it is a snapshot of progress on larger city goals. So I think in that respect, it's appropriate.
Yeah, well, it may be short on details. It's massive in scope. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Other comments or discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, we'll record a unanimous consent vote. All right. Next, we'll move on to item number 4, which is amending section 3356, which is the Transportation Commission ordinance, the new recreated Transportation Commission ordinance, which hasn't quite taken effect yet. Section 3 with regard to membership composition. So who from staff would like to give us a little update on this? Steve, did you want to give a little introduction on this?
I drafted this.
Okay.
But I'm not the advocating for or against the policy. I've got to make that clear. This is sponsored by the mayor. And I don't know if there's anybody from the mayor's office here or somebody from the transportation department. But I can explain what it does.
Sure, that would be great. I don't see anybody from the mayor's office here. I know Yang is here. Tom is out of town.
Okay. He spoke about this at the last meeting.
He did, yep.
This proposed ordinance modifies the composition of the Transportation Commission. It basically, instead of requiring that 8 of the 11 members must concurrently serve on another board or represent a specific mode of transportation or be knowledgeable of certain issues, that the mayor must strive to appoint members of certain boards, committees, and commissions. And the mayor shall also strive to appoint members who are knowledgeable of equity issues and the needs of marginal communities, who are knowledgeable of issues facing people with disabilities, or who represent a specific mode of transportation. It also staggers the terms of the beginning new members so that they don't all expire at the same time. And it specifies that the terms are end on June 30th.
Okay, thank you for that summary. Aiden, do we have anybody who's registered to speak on this item?
Yes, we do. Our first registrant, or the only person wishing to speak, is Grant Foster of Anchor Drive, Madison, opposes and wishes to speak.
Okay, Grant, go ahead. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, thanks.
Great, thank you. I wanted to speak briefly, largely in opposition to many of the proposals, or the proposal to eliminate the membership requirements. I'm fine with the proposal to update the staggering of the terms. In terms of the proposal to change what was just recently adopted by the Common Council in terms of membership requirements, I think it's worth emphasizing in the drafters analysis, it says that this means that 8 of 11 members must, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And kind of, we heard that description again tonight. There is a caveat in the drafters analysis, but I just want to be clear that it does not really at all require that 8 members have certain elements. Instead, there are 8 things that are required that some member has. And many of those things can be layered and have been in the past. I was appointed to both the Transportation Policy and Planning Board, the Board of Public Work, the Madison Area MPO, and my primary mode of travel was bike when I was a member as well. And so I covered 4 of the 8 requirements just in one single member. And there are many other members that have that meet multiple requirements. So I think it's important to know that it's likely that half or more of the members would be completely unrestricted appointments. We did take a couple of the requirements out of things that have been required for many, many years on different transportation bodies. We took out the requirement for someone using the parking system. We also took out the requirement of the Sustainable Madison crossover appointment. What was left, and that was, I think, already well debated, are essentially 3 categories. It's really difficult for me to imagine a good quality TC representation without someone who is knowledgeable of equity issues in the city and the needs of marginalized communities. I absolutely cannot imagine not having at least one member that's knowledgeable of issues facing people with disabilities. I've served on many committees, and this has just, I think, been one of the most important members that I've seen over the number of years. And I think we've been fortunate to actually have a person experiencing disability and the impacts on transportation, not just knowledgeable with, but that's the requirement. In terms of the primary transportation mode requirements, I think it's absolutely critical that we keep one person whose primary mode is bicycle, as well as someone whose primary mode is transit. I can imagine not having a specific member whose primary mode is walking, largely because I believe that would be covered by the person whose primary mode is transit. Other than that, I think those requirements are very critical. And the 3 committee crossover appointments, Madison Area MPO already requires, I think, 3 or 4 alder appointments to that. And so it almost always has more than one of the TC alders appointed there. It makes obvious sense. It's super easy to do. So the only 2 that are left are Board of Public Works and Plan Commission. We did think about this quite a bit, talked about it quite a bit. I served as the crossover member for BPW and TC. There are a lot of overwhelming majority of what goes through Board of Public Works is transportation related. And there are a lot of projects that go there that don't actually even come to the TC because of their size. And there are a lot of transportation discussions that happen at Board of Public Works. So I think there's a lot of value in having a crossover member, and I think it's relatively easy to accomplish with alder appointments. The crossover with Plan Commission, we really lacked that for a long time on the Transportation Policy and Planning Board. But transportation planning is the whole reason that the TPPB was created in the first place. We all agreed to get rid of it as a standalone body, but losing this connection point with planning, I think, is a really bad idea. I think it's probably the biggest area in needs of improvement in terms of transportation policy right now in the city. So I think that one's also critical. So I'll kind of wrap things up with that, and just as you're debating this, you really ask yourself, are you genuinely okay with not having any of these requirements represented? And please steer clear of thinking that this is about whether or not you trust the mayor and trust that they'll do a good job. This isn't really about this mayor at all. This is about all appointments for the future. And I believe that all mayors can absolutely make very good appointments to the TC, meeting all of these requirements. Thank you.
Thanks, Grant. Does anybody have a question for Grant? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. Do we have anybody else registered to speak, Aiden?
No, we have 3 other registrants not wishing to speak, though.
Okay, did you want to go ahead and read those off?
Sure. So Jonathan Mertzig of Odana Road, Madison, Wisconsin, opposes, does not wish to speak. Colin Joseph Roland, Anchor Drive, Madison, Wisconsin, opposes, does not wish to speak. And Andrew Cathell of Chandler Street, Madison, Wisconsin, opposes and does not wish to speak.
Okay, thank you very much. So comments or questions? Is there anybody else on staff who wishes to make a comment first before we get into discussion? Okay, comments or questions? Darren.
I'm not sure if there's anybody that can answer this, but I guess my question is why were these changes proposed? Was there a known issue that we're finding, or what was the impetus for the changes?
So Yang, I don't know if you can address that. I have heard Tom Lynch say that that it can be very challenging to try and meet these very, very specific requirements. And I can tell you, as chair of the Transportation Commission for a number of years, when we haven't lately, but over the years, we did have a number of positions open for quite some time. The restrictions in the prior ordinance weren't quite as restrictive as those that are in the current ordinance, but it did take some time, for them to find people who met the requirements. So I think I have heard that comment. Yang, would you agree with Is that what you have heard as well?
That is correct. Yeah. I wasn't directly involved in the recent discussions, but I did hear that about the challenges of finding members to fit in these different positions because they are very specific. I think one biggest challenge I heard is the challenges fitting. I should say one of the biggest challenges is to finding people, especially orders, being able to do like cover TC and PBW at same time, especially sometimes actually the two bodies actually meet on same day, same night, same time. That makes things quite challenging. And another example is the Plan Commission. Plan Commission is it's a major commission, and it's a big commitment. So Transportation Commission also big commitment. So I heard about the challenges of kind of filling in those positions.
Thanks. Did that answer your question, Darren?
It did. Thank you.
Okay, Robbie, go ahead.
Yeah, I do understand the challenges in filling positions that require that you also serve on another committee, because this is not just restricted to this particular board or commission. This is true for many commissions. However, given that there is a really critical link between land use and transportation, and that we are making some really important changes in transportation that will also affect how people, where we build and how we build, and vice versa. How, and where we build will affect our transportation system. I think that having that link with the Plan Commission is really, really critically important. And I pretty much agree with everything else that former Alder Foster said, that I can't imagine having a Transportation Commission without some of these representations for people who have disabilities, who experience the challenges of transportation with disabilities, who use other modes of transportation besides driving alone. Until we have a city where 50% or more of people don't use a car as their primary mode of transportation, I think we have to have something that says that those modes need to be represented on the Transportation Commission, because this ordinance change is going to be there for a long time. And I just cannot imagine having a functioning and what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say legitimate, but effective Transportation Commission without those representations and those links to other committees. I just don't see how that could happen. I think the link to the Plan Commission is probably the most important. I think it's desirable to have a link to the MPO and the Board of Public Works. But I do understand that those are sometimes harder to, there may not be as many people available or willing to serve on all of them. I think we had an exceptional opportunity with Alder Foster because he filled so many roles. And I think when I was serving on the council, I similarly served on various committees that also would check all those boxes. But I just cannot really support these changes the way they are written, because I just think that it it weakens the representation that we need for this committee. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks. Other comments or questions? Harold.
Yeah, thanks. I think a lot of things have already been said that I also very much agree with. I mean, I think, and it's unfortunate that nobody from the mayor's office is here to like provide a little bit more context of what is driving this. Because I think one of my questions is like, I mean, we just, how many, like 2 months ago, changed the Transportation Commission, decided to merge TC and TPPB, had very fruitful discussions of what that should look like and whether that's a good model or not. I know some people on the commission here had doubts about whether that was a good model, but I mean, I came away with like, yeah, you know, there's a good reason to merge the two bodies and then being thoughtful about what that means for who needs to be represented. On the newly formed Transportation Commission, I think that was a really key piece. And I mean that there was debate at TC, there was debate at the Common Council, but these matters like this proposed change that we are seeing now does not seem to be in line with those discussions. So, I mean, I think that's concerning to me. And so I can also not really support these changes to the membership requirements. And I think I'm not going to qualify it because I think Plan Commission, MPO, and Board of Public Works, I mean, I think for all three, there's a really good argument to be made. I think Robbie laid out the argument for Plan Commission very well. Former Alder Foster mentioned Board of Public Works, and I think we've seen this before where things have come to us and then they go to BPW, and there's like having that connection is really important. And then I think for the MPO, it's really crucial. I mean, when we talked about the comp plan update, we talked about WSDOT projects, we talked about as with the reorganization of the Transportation Commission, we decided, or it was decided that there would not be a regional representative. There was this whole question, well, but Metro serves municipalities outside of Madison. And so I think I argued that like, well, the MPO kind of covers that. And now we're looking at something where like, well, maybe we'll find somebody, maybe we'll not find somebody. And so, yeah, I don't think this is about, I mean, I also want to be very clear that this is not about the people who are currently on the commission or who will be nominated or appointed by this particular mayor in this particular cycle. I mean, this is a real policy change, what we're seeing in front of us. And it's a policy change following one that was just done a few months ago and hasn't even been implemented yet. So yeah, I'm not in support of this.
Thanks, Carl. Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess like everyone else, I wish someone could speak to the changes because it's hard to understand what's going on if you just take it at face value. I think like what folks have been saying, by combining the two bodies, we don't have to find as many folks to fill all the transportation spots. So that should make it easier, I think, to find crossover folks in general. You would think, hope, I guess. And I think the argument that it's very hard to find those crossover folks is just an argument that, you know, some mayor down the road who's not committed to that will not do it if it's that hard. So that makes it, I mean, it's basically saying it's so hard that we just won't get, you know, a plan commission member or I mean, MPO member or whatnot. So that makes it really hard to see, what the real benefit is. I do have a logistical or sort of a technical question that I'm not sure if maybe Attorney Brist can speak to. And it is if the crossover appointments are sort of optional. What is the thinking behind having the terms expire when that person leaves? So, for example, when the term of the plan commissioner expires with the end of their term on plan commission, if it's an optional position anyway.
Well, I don't know if the mayor considers it to be an optional decision, but the idea was that if somebody served more than one on more than one board that their terms would expire at the same time.
Yeah.
So I guess it's
Right.
that like, so strive to appoint a crossover member. And then if their term on the plan commission expired, their position would end so that hopefully you could find another plan commission member, I guess, is the thinking.
Yes,
something
I'd
like
say
that.
that's probably right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Other comments or questions? I'd like to make a couple observations. I watched the membership, obviously, of the Transportation Commission very carefully, and the Transportation Policy and Planning Board I have as well, because great interest to me, so I've attended pretty much all their meetings. And I'm pretty sure that the crossover members have always been alders on those bodies. And it was except for one, the Plan Commission member, the crossover member didn't used to be an alder, but then when that person left, the only person I think that they could find to be a crossover member was another alder. So that added an additional alder to the Transportation Policy and Planning Board. So I think alders are used to having that, extra heavy duty of 2 or possibly 3 or more very intensive BCCs that they're members of. So from that standpoint, that's an observation. And I had some other things, but I'll hold that till after we hear from Robbie and other folks. Go ahead, Robbie.
Well, I guess I'll just say that historically that has not necessarily been the case. The person who was on the Plan Commission was frequently a citizen member. And the same thing with the Board of Public Works. Before there was Transportation Commission and TPPB, when there were other transportation committees, there was frequently citizen crossovers.
Oh, I was just talking about my experience with TC and TPPB. Yeah.
I'm just saying that, that's only been, I don't know, 5 years or whatever.
Right.
And so it doesn't have to be. And in some ways, I think that's assuming that it's going to be an alder is assuming a greater burden than necessarily exists. And so I would hope that members of the Board of Public Works and members of the Plan Commission will increasingly also use other methods of transportation, primarily so that they can then also see through the eyes of people using those methods of transportation, and or also represent people with disabilities. I mean, I think that's, an important consideration on both of those committees as well. So I don't think it has to be an alder. I don't think we should assume it has to be an alder, and I don't think we should assume that these crossover positions put additional burden on alders.
Yeah. Oh, I was just making the observation, Robbie, that as far as TPPB and TC, typically they have been alders, with the exception of one instance that I recall. But anyway, did you have other comments? Okay, Alder Harrington McKinney, welcome. Go ahead.
Unmute myself. I had my hand up and then I lowered my hand because Robbie really spoke to a lot of the concerns, and I did not want to replicate what had already been said. But in the discussion, my question of the why was not clearly answered. I was a new person on transportation. Even though I had experience in transportation, I wasn't 100% in agreement of the consolidation. So I'm still trying to work through what all that means. And now again, we are getting ready to legislate again. And my concern is, and former Alder Foster spoke to that, is that the understanding of what people who have lived experience, who have to take transportation based upon whether they are bus transportation dependent, whether they have cars, whether they have bikes. And so that representation, that voice has to be moved forward until we get a very intensive public discussion of including people who have these certain considerations, and make sure that their voices are heard and represented on the transportation. I'm realizing how critically important transportation is as Madison grows and develops. And even in my new district, I'm seeing is that transportation is so critically important. And so I would hope that we're not making or will not make any decisions without having all of the questions answered. There's no one present from the mayor's office. And so for me, there's still some unanswered questions of the why, but I am very, very clear is that we must have and hear the voices of all people who uses all modes of transportation. And that is that's the definition of our job and our assignment, is that we look at all modes of transportation and making sure that we are having those modes represented. And so at this point, and Robbie summed it up, and I have to say former Alder summed it up as
Foster.
well. Foster
Yeah.
summed it up as
Mhm.
well. And he did it very eloquently. I cannot imagine us going forward without having the voices and representations that were outlined on this board are heard. So that's just my consideration and my hesitation right now.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to ask a couple of questions. One, Yang, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. Yeah, I just want to, add that from my experience, not that we see strong, but previously, the mayor's office did, ask the, staff members, including me, help reaching out to prospective committee members, for TC, for TPPB, to learn about their interest, to help evaluate them. I do think, the mayor, has a strong interest of actually finding, people who use different modes of transportation other than, driving alone. I think that's definitely a priority for the mayor. So I just want to share that. And I also want to point out that I don't believe, the mayor says that when she makes appointments, she will not appoint people, with these backgrounds. I think she will probably still strive to do it, even though maybe the requirements is not officially there. So I just want to share kind of my experience and my understanding of it. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Yang. So I'm hearing opposition to the changes that are recommended in section A of the proposal, but I haven't heard any real opposition to the changes in section C, which relates to the matching of the terms and and in section E, the staggering of the terms. So that's one question for you all. And then my second question is, from what I have heard, it's my understanding that the mayor's office really wants to try and do all of these things, but it just may not always be as possible to be as quite as specific as what's shown. So I'm wondering if you might be more comfortable with it's strongly recommended that the mayor appoint members who, as opposed to the mayor shall strive in both those cases. So oppose just those questions to make sure that you're not, number one, opposed to everything that's proposed, and number two, ask about any thought of different language. So Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, and please tell me if this is not the right time to do this, but I was going to make a motion to place this on file.
Okay, and just, I believe there was an error in the staggering of terms in terms of the numbers that were proposed in there. Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe the numbers added up in that term section, so that's
correct. The way the current ordinance is, it doesn't line up with the number of members. The staggering terms.
Yeah, so that's section E, Harold. If we don't change that, I don't think it's possible for them to do what's there because the numbers don't add up. So just as you're thinking about what motion you might want to make, that's one of the issues. Now, if we place this on file, then they could bring back another one that just makes that particular change as a possibility. So go ahead. What would you like to do?
I will quickly reread that section E and then reconsider. Thank you.
Okay. Robbie, go ahead.
Well, I was going to second his motion.
I was going to second too.
Because we got to discussion before we got to of the motion before we got to whether it was seconded.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wanted to clarify.
No, but that's not necessarily, I mean, having a discussion before the motion is.
Okay, so first off, I'm going to say Alder Harrington McKinney, your term expired on the Transportation Commission, and the new one hasn't been formed yet. So Steve Brisk can help me out here. So I believe at this point in this Transportation Commission, I don't think that you can make motions or second motions or vote, but that you can certainly participate in discussion. So if we can just address that point of order, we'll go back to Harold and Robbie's motion.
That's correct. The two members who were alders who were on the commission, their terms expired April 18th.
Okay, so Harold, you wanted to make a motion to place on file. Did you wish to? So Robbie, let's go back and follow that to make sure that I don't interrupt the flow of what was being suggested.
Maybe I can just ask, does Harold wish to withdraw his motion?
No, he wishes to make the motion to place this on file now.
Okay. And Robbie, you wish to second the motion?
And I would like to speak to the motion as well.
Okay, so Harold, if you'd like to speak to the motion, and then Robbie can go ahead and speak to the motion.
Yeah, sure. I'm not going to repeat all the good points that have been made already, what the problems are with the proposed solution, and we could try fixing this on the fly. I think a lot of section C is then tied to what we would like to take out in section A with, for example, sustainable Madison. And so that all seems a mess to do on the fly here. So I'm proposing to place this on file. Thanks for pointing out that section E has this drafting error in there, but I feel like that's going to be much cleaner. I don't think that's going to need referrals and all of that to fix the numbers in section E. So the best course of action in light of the discussion, in light of the public input today, is to place this on file. Thank you.
Thanks, Harold. Robbie, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll agree with what Harold just said, that since we have problems with some major portions and there is a drafting error in other portions, it just seems that it would be better to start over again. But at the same time, I do want to point out that several staff members have said they trust that the mayor will strive to fill these positions as she has in the past, representing these types of transportation and lived experiences and crossover and such like that. But again, as former Alder Foster pointed out, and several other people, this is not about this mayor. It's about an ordinance change. You know, offices change, and we are expressing, I think, at least I am expressing, that I do not think this is a good ordinance change, regardless of the feelings or appointments of the current office holder or any possible office holder in the future. I do not think this is a good ordinance change. So that is the bottom line for me.
Okay, anybody have any other comments or questions? So the motion is to place it on file. Bill, go ahead.
I've been silent on this because I guess I was out of town when the first change was made to consolidate the two bodies together. So I didn't have any chance to involve that or see that. So that is going forward. Is that correct?
That is correct. It would go into effect once there are members appointed to the new recreated TC, which hasn't happened yet.
Okay, so the appointments would be all new appointments, or would people who are on the existing transportation commission or the policy and planning board and have an appointment that is to go forward, would they be appointed to the new transportation commission, or would everybody have to be reappointed?
My understanding is everybody has to be reappointed, the way the ordinance reads, and Steve can jump in here.
That's correct. That's correct. The ordinance created a new body. It abolished the transportation commission that this body, and it abolished the transportation policy and planning board. But it doesn't take effect until appointments are made, which is why you are still having these meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess I'm still a little bit. My term is up June 30th, so I knew I was going to be. It definitely would impact me, and I anticipated that would. I've had discussion with Tom, but I guess is there like a resume that the mayor has, or is that kind of just word of mouth, or how is that going to happen?
Well, I believe that there have already been some discussions going on, and Yang, I don't know if you can comment on that. Again, it's too bad nobody from the mayor's office is here. And we do have another item on the agenda to talk about the recreated transportation commission, but it's relevant to understand what's happening here as well. So Yang, I believe there have been conversations, correct? I have not seen a list of who's going to be appointed, Bill, so I'm not aware. So Yang, I don't know if you have any, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you may have some idea of the process anyway.
There are definitely conversations going on. And I think the mayor's office is actually working pretty hard with Tom, trying to find appropriate persons to fill into these appointments. That conversation is going on. Also to maybe answer Bill's question. So typically, what happens is that so there is an online form that our citizens are interested in serving on city committee. They have to fill, and they'll provide their basic information. It's not a resume, but information about themselves, how is their background is aligned with the committee they're interested in, and in what way they can contribute. And from there, the mayor's office reach out to them and have some conversation sometimes, and kind of gauge whether it's appropriate for that appointment. Also, sometimes, as I mentioned, that the mayor's office will reach out to staff who work with these BCCs, and asking staff to have a conversation with the prospective members and all the applicants, to just get more information so the mayor can make more informed decision. So there's definitely like a process there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think this time might be a little bit different just because, because circumstances, because, we are kind of restructuring the committees. But that process has been, the regular process. So thank you. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
I have a better understanding now of what transpired, that all appointments will expire when the new appointments are made. So that goes, how many people will be on the board or on the commission?
So it's 11 members plus 2 alternates.
Okay. And the members include 2 alders, or is that?
Four alders.
4 alders. So there'll be 7 then citizen
Right.
members?
Plus the 2 alternates are also resident members.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Denise, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. I really concur with what's been named, so I won't repeat all of that, but just in strong alignment. I have a procedural question, since this is a first for me that we have had a motion to put something on file. Is that what? Yeah. Can somebody explain that to me so I understand what that means procedurally?
Sure. I'll say my understanding, and then we'll ask Steve Brisk to verify that or confirm that, is that the recommendation is that this would not take effect. Basically, the changes that are recommended would not be implemented, that the ordinance would stay as is. Steve, would that be correct?
That's correct. Placing on file is a polite way to say that the matter is being defeated without actually voting it down. You place it on file. There's an equivalent motion in Robert's Rules of Order that's called something different, but this is what the council uses.
Okay. Alder Harrington McKinney, go ahead.
Am I unmuted? Yes.
You are. Go ahead.
Okay. And so from what I can understand, that I can participate in question and discussion. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So my question is that, and this is really to Steve, is that the appointment, I'm specifically looking at my appointment that ended April the 18th, but then the mayor has made appointments. And so I want to ask Steve, is that how is that in alignment? Because one of the commissions that I was appointed to was the new Transportation Commission, and I'm really kind of not understanding the statement is that my term has ended, but the mayor has already made appointments. And when do those appointments take effect?
Well, my understanding is that the current Transportation Commission is not the new body, it's the old body. In fact, the Transportation Policy and Planning Board is still in place too. And that no appointments have been made to the new body officially.
Right. There may have been discussions, Alder, but I've been watching the Common Council appointments. I haven't seen any Alder appointments or resident appointments to the recreated Transportation Commission come through. Is that correct, Steve?
I can't verify that, but my understanding is that there may be offers that were made to people to ask them to serve on the body, but that it doesn't become official until confirmed by the council or made by the mayor and confirmed by the council. And so far, the old committee is still in effect as the body. It hasn't been abolished yet.
Okay, I'll lower my hand, but I would really like Steve to have better clarification for me, and I will send
Well,
it
what
to
happens is
the
if
office.
you've been told by the mayor you're going to be appointed, you'll be appointed to the new body when it takes effect.
Okay.
The new body does not take effect until appointments are made to the new body, according to the way it was drafted.
Until the appointments have been all the way through the process, correct?
Yes.
Right.
And because the alders have terms that are concurrent with their term on the council, the two alders' terms expired. And they may be reappointed to the new commission, but they're not currently members of either one.
Okay. Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, that's my understanding too. And I can say as the crossover TPPB member that TPPB still exists, but we have not met since the new ordinance was originally passed. My original point, was so I was going to make a complicated motion that would have amounted to like wordsmithing this in real time. So I appreciate the current motion, I think. I have a question for maybe Robbie or Harold. So I think our motion would be a recommendation to the council, in which case I am wondering if we want to make a recommendation to council, or we're basically amounting to making no recommendation. So anybody want to speak to that?
My understanding of the motion was that we were recommending to the Common Council that this be placed on file. Is that a fair statement, Harold and Robbie?
Yeah, I think I would like to leave it at that.
So I think, Chris,
Okay.
we're asked, the
So,
motion is
yeah.
that the Transportation Commission recommends to the Common Council that this be placed on file.
Okay, and then at some point, we've talked about it enough that word will go around why we don't approve of it, and that the staggered terms are okay, and hopefully this gets worked out. Okay.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
trying, and that's why I was trying to do what I think you were thinking about, Chris. Could we be more complicated and try and accomplish the changes? But I think it would be very, very hard to do that. And we'd be sitting here trying to draft an ordinance change in the middle of a meeting, which was hard to do. So.
All right. I think this is the way to go then. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Robbie, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I trust that if the council has any questions, they can either ask Yang or Steve, or reach out to somebody on the council, or on the committee, or they can watch the recording or something like that. They'll figure it out why we had issues with it. So
yeah. Well, Robbie, what I'd be willing to do is register to speak at the council meeting and say what I think, and then also bring forward what has been strongly communicated by the people here, if you would like me to do that, because I think it would be very difficult to encompass everything that has been said by all of you into a motion.
I think that you can do that if you wish, but I think that the other way to do it would be for committee members to just send an email to all alders to explain their feelings.
I think actually that's the best alternative. And, if you send what you think to that all alders email address, and if you don't have it, Aiden can certainly send it to you. I think it's allalders@cityofmadison.com, but Aiden can confirm that. Robbie, that's the best, because I know how I feel about it, but it's hard for me to communicate what you all think. So I think certainly Alder Harrington McKinney is here this evening, and she's heard what we have to say, but alders are welcome to watch the meeting, as you said. But it's also very meaningful if you have strong feelings to send your thoughts directly to the members of the Common Council. So I would encourage that as well. Great suggestion, Robbie. So other comments or questions with regard to the motion? I'll repeat that the motion is to recommend to the Common Council that this item be placed on file. Any further discussion? So I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote. I haven't heard any differently, but if anybody wishes to vote no to that motion or to abstain, please raise your hand. Okay, I'm seeing no hands. So the motion is carried with a unanimous vote. So thanks, everybody. Obviously, a lot of thoughtful comments and heartfelt feelings with regard to that. So appreciate that. Okay, next item we have is item 5, which is the Hartmeyer development. So is that you, Sean?
That is me, yes. Second to share my screen. Okay. Should all be seeing my screen. So this site that I have for you today, project for you today, is the street connection of that connects Huxley Street and Ruskin Street, which will complete a connection from Commercial Avenue to Aberg Avenue. And this street was one of the big factors that came out of the Oscar Mayer special area plan. So this first slide is the official map street reservation that came from that plan. You can see the north-south street is Huxley to Ruskin. We're not sure what we're going to name it yet, but it's going to be one of the two. And the other street is Coolidge Street, which was intended to extend from Packers Avenue to this new street. So, and I guess I'd have you note that this map reservation is a little different than what we have on the next couple pages, because we need some other sites to redevelop to get to this final condition. So yeah, especially in this northern section, you'll see that this Huxley Ruskin tees into Roth, and it's a little bit of an offset T, which isn't ideal, but it's a temporary condition until this site redevelops and we can do a continuous connection. So with that, I'll go into the geometric details. So this is oh, you guys like to go full screen. I'll do that for you.
Thank you. That's very helpful, Sean.
So I changed the north arrow on you. So now north is to the left, just so I get a better view. So Huxley, Roth, and Coolidge Street. This is the proposed geometrics. Huxley is a 36-foot street, as described in the ordinance, due to the location of the park and the multifamily housing. That was the requirement. So we're doing bump outs at the intersections and narrowing it down to 28. There is a park planned on this west side of Huxley Street, I'm calling it. So we do anticipate some traffic calming, two potential speed humps. I thought made sense, and potentially raising the intersection at Huxley and Coolidge. I would note that this area is extremely flat, so we're looking into these speed humps, bump outs, and the raised intersection, and making sure that the drainage works. That definitely is a concern, more so on this project than other projects, because of how flat the street is. So we're looking into that, but the intention is to have these bump outs and traffic calming as shown. And Coolidge Street, we have it, I guess, going from Huxley into the railroad. We don't have a railroad crossing yet, and the Oscar Mayer facility is still there. So this is kind of the extension of Coolidge until that crossing happens and that site redevelops. So that will be continued on. with that new development. We are planning a path on this west side of Huxley to go in the park. So I know right now it doesn't look like much, but eventually the goal is to have this path extend all the way up to Aberg and then south to Commercial Avenue, and then Commercial Avenue to the east. It was the kind of the grand idea of this plan. So it'd be nice, as it's along the park, to have that connection. This next page is just the southern end of Huxley and Ruskin, and how it connects into the existing Ruskin Street. We're able to get a sidewalk connection on the east side of this street, but due to the existing properties, we're not able to get the sidewalk on the west side just yet. There needs to be some offsite grading, and we're just not able to do that this time. So we only have the sidewalk on the east side. When the site on the west redevelops, we will certainly install the sidewalk there. And this is kind of just the big overall graphic of the street connection. It was identified in the special area plan as critical connection, and it's happening pretty soon, I guess. And I guess the last slides I have are the development itself. There's 2 apartment buildings, one north of Coolidge and one south of Coolidge. These developments are driving the street connection. So something we're excited about as we break up this Oscar Mayer area a little bit and add these connections. I think that is all I have. But if we have questions or comments, I'd love to hear them.
So let me ask Aiden, do we have anybody registered to speak on this item?
Nope, we do not.
Okay, Robbie, go ahead.
First of all, I'll move approval, and if I can get a second, I'd just like to make a comment.
Sure, we don't actually need a motion. This is just review and feedback. So unless you have a particular motion on changes or anything, so.
Nope, that's fine. I'll just make a comment then.
Go ahead.
Looks like
You're muted.
All right. I'm really thrilled this is going to happen because bicyclists have been wearing a little desire line between these 2 points for probably at least 15 years. We dubbed it the Smoky Link, although someone pointed out that that's not an Oscar Mayer product. But this is going to be a really, really important connection for a lot of people on the north side for bicycling and walking. And my first question, of course, was what kind of street is this going to be? Is this going to be comfortable for bicycling? But it looks like you've made it so that it'll be a slow speed street so that it will be a comfortable all ages and abilities link. So kudos, and I'm just really glad that this is happening because it's absolutely necessary for linking the north side to the rest of the bicycle network. Thanks.
Thanks, Robbie. Sean, I'm just going to go back to you just to verify. This was presented to me as review and feedback. You do not need a motion from TC, do you?
That's correct. Yeah, just review and feedback.
Okay. Other comments or questions for Sean? Bill, go ahead.
Sean, could you move to the next slide? Where you show, yeah, that one. It shows for this Coolidge Street extension, you show the crosswalk at a fairly wide part of the street that rather than back further east.
So this was the developer's drawing, I guess their take on it.
Yeah.
So they would do this plan, I guess.
Okay,
This was just to show the site plan, so I wouldn't focus too much on the street design because they.
yeah, okay,
Because
all right,
Yeah, we'll be using our design rather than.
sure, because you can see, and you've got pedestrians crossing
Yeah, the
wide.
type 1 crossing.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
we're not gonna do that.
Good, good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, other comments or questions for Sean? Harold, go ahead.
Sorry, a second to unmute myself. Yeah, I think overall this looks good. Just to confirm, so with a 36-foot wide street, so the assumption is there's gonna be street parking on both sides on the whole stretch.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, and that's like we need to do that. I guess I'm asking, I mean, especially early on when there's not much development, I mean, it will probably mean that the on-street parking is not going to be used very much, which then leads to the usual problems of a wide open street that people will be enticed to speed on there.
Yeah, so this does fall under the subdivision regulations, so
Okay.
we do have to do the
All right.
36-foot street.
I was afraid
I
that
do-
would be the case.
I do have some of the concerns you have as well, though.
Okay.
Hopefully the speed humps and the raised intersection prevent some of that.
Right. I mean, I guess the first potential speed hump is pretty far in, but maybe that's okay because there's not as much development yet on the other stretches. So, yeah. For the multi-use path, so this will be continued on the same side. You just need to connect it to the street as it is right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I didn't want to dead end it, so I
Right.
just have it cross over. But yeah, eventually it will go likely, I guess, on the west side. This also gives us the option that if the sites on the east side redevelop, we can do that option where we have the pass. So really, I think it depends on which one redevelops first. It gives us that option, but I think ideally it's the west side, but I think either way we'll get that connection.
Yeah, I think if there's going to be a park for a good stretch on the west side, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to have the path on that side so that you don't have to deal with driveway crossings and all of that. Maybe in the meantime, just look at the actual connection point with the street, that's actually going to be usable. I mean, I know it's going to be temporary, but with the 90-degree angle, it might be difficult to get in and out. So just making sure that there's a wide turn radius that people can get in and out without having to cross the other lane and all of that. I'm not sure how many people are going to use it initially as it ends there, but yeah, I think that's generally good practice. That's all I had. Thanks.
Thanks, Harold. Anybody else have any other comments or questions for Sean? Okay, I'm seeing no hands, Sean. Did you get what you needed?
I did. Thank you all for having me.
Okay. Thanks very much. So next we move on to transition to the recreated TC. As you've noticed, Tom Lynch is not here. He's out of town. He did email me. He indicated that he had heard that the appointments to the recreated TC may be introduced at the Common Council meeting next Tuesday, which means that typically that agenda is posted by Friday, so that we should all be able to see that if that is in fact the case. So they may be confirmed in early June. So we'll be tracking that very carefully, because clearly once the appointments are finalized, when that is determined, then this TC would dissolve along with the Transportation Policy and Planning Board, and the recreated TC would go into effect. So comments or questions about this? We talked about this a bit already as we were discussing the proposed amendments to the Transportation Commission ordinance. Comments or questions, or anybody else have any other additional information with regard to that? Steve or Yang or anybody, Stephanie, anybody else? Okay. Anybody else have any other comments or questions? Will certainly let you know as soon as we know things. At this point, please keep the, May 24th meeting on your agenda and the meetings in June on your agenda, and we'll see where this all goes, and certainly keep you all posted with regard to that. So any other comments or questions? Okay. In terms of announcements by the chair, I just wanted to say that as far as I know, this group will be meeting on the 24th of May. There was an item referred to the May 24th TC meeting by the Common Council on the 2nd, and there may be other referrals as well. And we'll be talking about other future agenda items. So as far as I know, we'll be meeting on the 24th. And if there's anything different, we'll certainly let you know. Any other announcements anybody has? No? Okay. Then going on to future agenda items, there were a number of items that we were going to try and take up this evening, but folks were out of town or things weren't ready. So there are a number of items that are scheduled for the meeting on the 24th. Does anybody else have any other future agenda items other than what we already have listed or on in our work plan? Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Yang mentioned that Wistat is doing the I-94/I, whatever, the interstate study where they are looking into potentially doing 2 interchanges in the city of Madison at Hopker and out near at Sprecher. And I think that probably would be good to have at TC at some point, and I'll leave it to staff to figure out when and what the best time for that is.
Okay. Thanks. Chris?
Given that we had some public comment about the information about the network redesign, it will be fairly late in the process, but it might be good to have an update on how that's looking, especially right before it kicks off.
That's a great comment. It's my understanding that once it kicks off on June 11th, I think it is, then they'll be looking over the course of the next couple of weeks to make sure things are going well, and there might be potential changes brought to the TC like in August. But I think what you're suggesting is perhaps at the May 24th meeting, just an update pre-implementation. Okay, so we'll put that on for 5/24. I wondered if this group might be interested in that, because we've all been so involved in planning for, talking about diversity, talking about, Denise, you were talking about how it was going to impact people with disabilities. There's been a lot of conversation about it. So we'll see if Justin or Mick or somebody can come and give a Metro network redesign update. All right, Denise, go ahead.
Yeah, and related to that, if you can ask Justin to specifically address that, because Jason Belungi from Access to Independence and I have had conversations with Metro, and they've put in some action. So I'd like that to be included in that update.
Okay, so specifically address impact on people with disabilities?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, I made a note. And just so you all know, I've been trying to put together information to pass along to the new recreated Transportation Commission. And one of the things is these potential agenda items plus our TC work plan. So that pretty much spells out what we typically work on and other specific things that we have been looking to have on our future agenda. So that information will be passed along to the new body as well. So be thinking about that. If you have any other things that you'd like to put on the list, we can certainly do it at our next meeting in May as well. So anything else for the future agenda topics? Okay. As usual, a really great conversation, and I know I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I don't think I've ever been involved with a group that is so careful about being prepared and interested in talking about each and every topic that we discuss at our meetings. And that engagement and involvement is just so amazing and appreciated, and hopefully recognized by other people. So as chair, I really want to thank you all for that. Bill?
Yes, and it's the next item that you have on the agenda regarding minutes from other transportation related committees.
It's not actually on the agenda. It's actually off the agenda at the bottom. So we don't talk about it every time. And I don't think that they've actually been updated, Bill.
No, that was my comment. I looked at,
okay.
There's nothing from 2023 on any of those.
Yeah. Aiden and I have talked about that. So it's maybe that's something that we could put on the agenda for the next meeting, because I've always been curious if anybody pays any attention to those, and if they should still be there, and going forward, how helpful that would be.
Yeah.
So
as they are right now, they're not helpful, because it's like reading last year's newspaper. So
okay. So I'll try and see if we can figure out how to put that on the agenda so we can talk about that.
As to whether the value is and so forth.
Exactly. Yeah. And should it be continued or dropped, or and that may be very helpful to recreate a transportation commission.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Other comments or questions about future agenda topics? Okay, then we need a motion to adjourn. Harold.
Adjournment.
Okay. We need a second. Come on. There we go. Bill, seconded by Bill.
Second.
I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote. Never had anybody vote against adjourning. So I'm assuming not. Thanks, everybody.